Welcome to Psychos and Sociopaths. Got it first try. Uh, Today we're going to talk about Ed Gaines. Ed Gaines is a lot of people don't, unless you're like into the serial killers and everything like that. Ed Gaines is modeled off of a lot of horror stuff. American Psycho, Psycho itself, the book and the movie.
I think you had that backwards. A lot of horror movies and novels were modeled after him.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
there
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
See, I'm helping.
Yeah. He Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Who's the guy from Silence of the Lambs?
Hannibal Lecter.
No, not Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's go.
Let's get into this.
What was the other thing? Yeah, there's a lot of songs. Even House of a Thousand Corpses by Rob Zombie, the movie.
Yeah.
Black. There's another subgenre of news report crimes called black humor, called gainers. Since the 1950 gain has frequently been exploited by transgressive art or shock rock.
Yeah, I was even a band named Ed Gain.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went by a couple of different monikers, Butcher of Plainfield or the Plainfield Ghoul.
Yeah, they even had to take away his headstone.
Yeah.
They had to take away his headstone so people to chip stuff off. Because they do it with like popular stars and everything like that too.
Yeah,
but a lot of the people that love serial killers and stuff like that, they even stole it, and it had been missing for a while, for like 2-3 years. But he was modeled. Well, they used him as a stepping stone. A lot of things, and he was for Leatherface. A lot of people are like, "Oh no, the whole story was from Texas." Like, no, it's a guy from Wisconsin called Ed Gaines.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell people that. Even, I mean, I had to do research just to prove myself right. Because a lot of people that just come to Texas, they just believe that. It's like, no, that's not, that never happened. But this is Edward Theodore Gaines, also known as you said, the Butcher of Plainfield and the Plainfield Ghoul. I won't get into ghouls, what they actually are. Well, yeah, I can do it real quick. Ghouls are basically the scavengers of graveyards.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a scavenger at a graveyard. The funny thing about it, though, is he wasn't a necrophiliac because, in his own words, the body smelled bad, so I couldn't do that. He came from I don't know if I want to say broken home. His father was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And his mother was I don't want to say this going as a person that has a lot of friends into Christianity. I mean, you have a Lutheran brother-in-law, but it was a very religious Bible thumper family.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the mother at least
Right.
was. Women were the devil. It was the whole water boy stuff. I think that's where they got the idea for the mother for Waterboy, because the mother was more or less is like, women are the devil, well, except for me. Mama's all right, but everybody else the devil. Did a lot of verses through the Old Testament and the Book of Revelations. That's where she more or less read to Gaines or Ed. He did have a brother, Henry Gaines, but they were doing some kind of fire and everything like that, and it was basically Mars vegetation on the property. They were burning it, making sure that they got it all out. The fire department was called, and they found Henry after they got the fire out and everything like that dead, and they just pushed it underneath the rug, didn't think anything of it. And then finally, the examiners looked at it. Is he had abrasions over his throat and a bunch of other stuff, and they thought it was just like a heart attack for a young kid.
Yeah.
What ended up happening was Henry was trying to get Ed away from his mother, get him away from the influence of his mother, because Henry knew his mother was toxic.
Yeah.
And it came around to the point to where Ed didn't like that and killed his brother. It's not documented. There's evidence of it, but they never filed it, type of deal.
Yeah.
They never could get enough evidence of it. They just put down he died of asphyxiation. There was a fire and everything. Yeah. But a lot of people were saying, especially a doctor, psychologist, said it was more or less a Cain and Abel type stuff going on the political scale. Another thing was he ended up going in, and he ended up dying just at a mental institution because he was crazy.
Yeah, it was like, what was it, ultimately, respiratory failure? Something like that?
Cancer.
Cancer?
Lung cancer.
Yeah, okay.
He had a weird asphyxiation with cannibals and Nazi.
Yeah, Pulp Fiction type stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Warrishaw, I know I butchered that up. The Warrishaw sheriff's deputy discovered Warden's body was actually his mom, the sheriff's mom. She owned the hardware store.
Yeah.
Found her decapitated body in a shed on Gaines' property, hung upside down by her legs with a crossbar at her ankles and ropes at her wrists. I mean, he was dressing her out like a deer.
Yeah, that's what a lot of the articles
Yeah, and exactly.
say.
It says, yeah, torso was dressed out like a deer. She had been shot with a .22 caliber rifle, and the mutilations were made after her death.
Yeah, that's another thing that I'm starting to see a pattern of is most of the killers, they use .22 calibers.
Yeah.
I think it's...
Well, I think the biggest part of that is that with the .22, there's a lot of splash damage, and it doesn't create an exit wound a lot of times.
Okay.
Because it bounces around. So, because the .22, unless you're using a .22 Magnum, it's not a jacketed round at all. So when you make the initial the initial entry wound, it'll bounce around inside, like it'll bounce around off of ribs or bounce around the inside of a skull, and it doesn't leave an exit wound. So if you're trying to create things like trophies, .22 to the back of the head, right here, right behind the ear, you'll get up into the brain cavity and turn people off like a light switch, but you preserve the overall integrity of the skull by not having this gaping, like, charred up exit wound.
Yeah, because he had a lot... Because that was another thing, and that's another thing we can go on the what they found in his home. Whole human bones and fragments, a waste basket made from human skin covered several chair sets, skull on a bedpost, a skull made from bowls made from human skulls, female skulls that were top sawed off, corpse made from female torso skin from the shoulder to the waist, leggings made from human legging skin, mask made from skin from female heads, Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag, Mary Hogan's skull in a box, Bruce Warden's entire head in a burlap sack, Bernice. Okay, sorry. Bernice Warden's heart in a plastic bag in front of Gaines's...
balls, I'm sorry.
No, I messed it up.
Found a plastic bag in front of his potbelly stove.
Yeah.
9 vulvae. So he removed vulva, the vagina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That gave me a good picture. As soon as it popped it up, it gives me a photo of it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So in this week's edition, we get to have the birds and bees talk. Let's see, a young girl's dress, the vulvas of two females judged to have been about 15 years old, a belt made of female human nipples,
Oh my.
four noses, a pair of lips, and a shadow shade or window shade drawstring, a lampshade made from the skin of a human face, fingernails from the female victims.
And a lot of this stuff, what you should just realize is a lot of this stuff wasn't. Some of it was made from people that he killed, but he was a grave digger.
It was a body snatcher, yeah.
Yeah. So he he even said himself that a lot of the times he would live. This is his story. He would black out and find himself in the graveyard digging graves and everything like that. And he'd come to. Sometimes he didn't come with the trophy. He just found the spot, and his mind came to realization of what he was doing, and he would bury the put it back to where it was. But it just shows how much this person. And I don't want to go off and just say, "Oh, it was his mother's fault and everything." It probably kind of was.
Well, I mean, to the extent, I mean, he had created a woman suit so that he could become his mother.
Yeah, that's where we get the psycho part of that. But he was a deranged person. Uh, even even Ed Kemper, and this is where you probably got the Ed Kemper thing to Gaines. Ed Kemper to Gaines saying, you know what Ed Gaines said about women? He said, when I see a pretty girl walking down the street, I think two things. One part of me wants to take her out, talk to her, and be real nice and sweet and treat her right. The other part part wonders what her head would look like on a stick.
Yeah, and see, I hang that on his mom. I really do. She set him up. I mean, she had no respect for anybody. She definitely disrespected his dad. Um,
Yeah, because he kept on he I don't know if you
yeah, he had
call him a
problems holding
failure.
him jobs, but I mean,
Yeah.
the guy was an alcoholic, and I'm not saying that alcoholics are bad people, because I mean, the world's full of them, and most of them,
Are functional.
they're functional. They and some of them over actually they beat back their addiction and they live a life of sobriety, and they're productive. But she just had that at
This
the
is
time that the Lutheran teaching, that fire and brimstone,
well, not
religious.
all Lutherans are like that.
Yeah,
Mind you,
that's fair.
yeah.
So not all Lutherans. I'm not using a broad paintbrush here, but I mean that overly
And not all
fire.
Bible
Well, at the
thumpers are
time,
really bad.
that
but
era,
yeah.
it was fashionable to be that fire and brimstone, and you look down on people who were sinners, and
Or if you had
because
marital relations,
the older brother was trying to get Ed out of that environment. I think the mom really said that she saw this as, oh, this is just another instance of somebody leaving me. The mom had attachment issues. I think the mom was codependent, and she really she mentally and emotionally just wore Ed down, and to the point where I think after Ed's brother Henry died in the fire, I think he really hung that on his mom, and that's when he really started to take his angst out on the female populace, because he was doing it as a way to get back at his mom. And I mean, it was even described when he made that woman suit. He looked at it as a way to crawl into her skin.
I mean, quite literally on
Yeah.
that one.
So that's why I hang a lot of his behavior on his mom. Now, I think that mentally he was, I mean, because initially he was declared as unfit to stand trial, because of the mental side of it. So, and yes, it may not be fair to hang that on his mom, but I'm hanging it on his mom, because I mean she took the I mean, it was written, it was said there, like, that when the dad had the family come out to that 155 acres, they were isolated. They were isolated, and she took that as an opportunity to really hammer down and kind of mold him into what she thought a man should be.
Yeah, even his childhood when he was going to school, a lot of people were. He kept on trying to be sociable, but he was very antisocial because his mother stopped all that.
Yeah, she
She
punished
wasn't
him for
allowing
making friends and
friends.
things
Yeah,
like that. I mean, and he did really well at school. I mean, he excelled, and especially in the area of reading. So, I mean, he was a very astute, literate individual. So, I mean, he had a degree of intelligence about him. It's just that the mental handicapping that she had produced, that she had inflicted upon her kid, I think ultimately is responsible for the things that he did.
yeah,
And with the isolationism that she was forcing him into, that's where I think that's why he fell in with that's why he was attracted to the pulp fiction novels. He was attracted to the tales of cannibalism and the Nazi occult, and he really didn't have a problem with things like uh, uh, necromancy. Or no, that's not
Necker.
necrophilia. Thank you.
No. He had a problem with necrophilia.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Necrophilia. So
Yeah,
it just came to my
it's
head.
just grave digging and
Yeah,
human taxidermy.
yeah. So
There's no word. There actually isn't a word for what he did. I don't think because
yeah,
the only thing you can say is human taxidermy.
yeah. I mean, but his dad worked as a leather tanner at one
Yeah,
point. So I mean, some of the lessons that he had to have been paying attention. So I mean, that's curing human skin and things like that, turning it into leather so you can make things like lampshades and running it through these different chemical washes and stuff like that to produce a soft enough leather to make a suit with. Um,
man, I just
yeah,
buggered out a little bit there.
but
He
I do hang a lot of it on his mom. I think that his mental degradation is a direct result of his mother's.
it had a high end factor.
Yeah, it held a high degree of responsibility.
Yeah. The really strange thing is though is he loved babysitting and it wasn't any kind of evil thing on that. He just felt more comfortable with taking care of kids. That's what's
Yeah,
it's
he
it's
had
like the
he had
way
that caretaker mentality, but
yeah,
I think once you reached a certain age, I think he held you, especially as a female,
higher
culpable
standards.
for the things that his mother, as a female, a nurturing role, inflicted upon him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really want to dive into that all too much because it just makes me angry.
Yeah, see,
When kids are around and everything like that
yeah,
doing that, I just get really, really, really angry. I was like when we were doing what's his name the dating game killer.
yeah.
Man, I had to go to a gym that had a punching bag for a couple of hours.
Well, see, on the bright side there is you got out and did something physical, so that's good.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you can say that. I mean, I do not like. I hate anybody that wants to harm kids or anything like
Oh
that,
yeah,
or
no,
do
I've
anything.
got no use for people like that. But he was put on trial on November 21st of '57. He was arraigned on one count of first-degree murder. He pled not guilty by reason of insanity. He was diagnosed as a schizophrenic, found mentally incompetent, and thus unfit for trial. He was sent to the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, which is now the Dodge Correctional Institution, which is a maximum security facility in Wanapum, Wisconsin. He was later transferred to the Mendota State Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin. In '68, he was determined as mentally able to confer with counsel and participate in his defense. The trial began on November 7th of '68 and lasted 1 week. A psychiatrist testified that Gain had told him that he did not know whether the killing of Bernice Warden was intentional or accidental. Gain had told him that while he examined a gun in Warden's store, the gun went off, killing Warden rather, and then he testified that later, after trying to load a bullet into a rifle, it discharged. He said that it had not been aimed. He had not aimed the rifle at her, and did not remember anything else that happened that morning. Um, so, in his defense, his trial was held without a jury, or at the request of his defense, it was held without a jury. The Judge Robert Gallmer, was presiding. He was found guilty by Gallmer on November 14th. The second trial dealt with his sanity, and after the testimony by doctors for the prosecution and defense, Gallmer ruled Gain not guilty by reason of insanity and ordered him to, or committed to Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. And he spent the rest of his life there in a mental hospital. Due to prohibitive costs, he was tried for only one murder, and that was for Mrs. Wharton. He had also admitted to killing Mary Hogan. But I mean, and it wasn't so much for the murders, like the actual murders of living people. It was just for the grave robbing that he had committed, and just the things that he was doing with those bodies.
I mean,
that really brought him to that peak of cult notoriety.
Yeah, and even to this day, and just Google Ed Gaines and look at images, you'll have, oh God, it's just really weird and awkward because you'll find like lampshades, all kinds of stuff that's inspired, I guess, is the right word.
Yeah, for those of our viewers that don't want to take the time or think that they got the stomach to look at that imagery, just look up images of the Necronomicon from the Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
And that'll give you kind of an idea as to what to expect.
Or just do Ed Gaines, and they even have wallets.
Yeah,
it's just.
If
you like the weird and
just the weird and just the really
out there, that's where you want to go, because
that's
it's all
definitely
and it really is just inspired by what Ed Gaines did, and there's people out there. I mean, who's the guy that did trying to think, the first Hellboy tutorial, because he has because he's a big horror fan.
Benicio del Toro. Yeah, I mean, he's way into that stuff.
Yeah. Because I got I'm curious.
Yeah, story was loosely adapted into numerous films, including Deranged, In the Light of the Moon.
Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro, thank you. Ed Gein, The Butcher of Plainfield, Ed Gein, the musical.
That was another thing that was on there. They had a musical.
Yeah.
That freaked me out, too.
The House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects. He served as the inspiration for a lot of different fictional serial killers. Norman Bates, Leatherface, Buffalo Bill, the character Dr. Oliver Thredson from American Horror Story Asylum. Let me see here.
I still like that one song, Slayer album, Season in the Abyss, Nothing to Gain.
Yeah.
Play on word. Very good, sir.
Just like a lot of.
If you look at the references and everything like that, it's almost like 2 to 3 pages.
Yeah, like with a lot of the subject matter that we've covered in this series, it's pop culture has really been affected by these people.
Yeah, because a lot of people, they go after the weird and unexplained, and
yeah, because what is it? There's that sound on TikTok. It's like. Thought it was a phase. It's not really a phase,
Yeah, type of deal.
Yeah.
Because it's like a lot of goth heads go to it, and then they just a lot of them just keep it up and going and everything like that.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. Is I do this show only because a lot of people are interested in it, and we get sometimes it's a hit and miss type deal.
Yeah, like last week, I really kind of felt like we phoned that in last week.
Yeah, because there really wasn't that much on him.
Yeah, no, but with Ed Gein, you look at the picture of this guy, and he's got the stereotypical steelworker, shipyard, flannel hat guy, unshaven. He really looks like somebody who just he got dropped out of a soup line from the 1930s Depression era, and you stick him in a shipyard somewhere in New Jersey in the 1950s. That's what this guy looks like.
Yeah.
And he's got a lot of the same, some of the lot of the post-war years developed, produced, and um, really fed a lot of these serial murderer types. And it really kind of helped perpetuate the stereotype of where they would come from. And it was a lot of from the post-war era stuff, post-World War II, where,
Not even that, more
well,
World
no,
War One too, yeah.
yeah. Specifically post-World War II, because you get a lot of these war widows that are left, raising men, raising the boys or raising kids after the dad died overseas, and
Yeah, you had a lot of contributing factors on
one
some
failed
stuff.
relationship after another.
Well,
Kind
not
of
even that. You
deal.
also had the Great Depression. I mean,
Yeah.
during that time frame, you had a lot of stuff that was out there. I mean, you had the Spanish flu, you had World War One, then you had the Great Depression, and then you had World War
Yeah.
Two, and then you had Korean War during the,
Korean War.
and you just had a lot of, uh, and you had more information. This is the beginning of the information era. I mean,
Yeah.
it might have been just really small and minute, but you're able to get information from across the nation. It started across the nation, and then you got across the world, and then you ended up having like more information
Yeah.
than you could use, and that was the starting of a lot of people just reading about weird stories or
Yeah.
reading
It
about
seems like
something.
the smaller the world got, the more mainstream the oddities became.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was for the betterment of society.
I
I
mean,
mean, we need
no,
to
no, no.
acknowledge.
Well,
I think yes, we need to acknowledge that these things happen because, like we had said before, Winston Churchill said, "Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it."
yeah.
So, but I mean,
But back
we need to
then,
know we need to acknowledge that these people existed, but at the same time, we don't need to glorify them.
yeah. Well, the problem with that is back, and this is, I don't know how far back you can go. You can go back to a long way, but a lot of the stuff extended. The best example, the earliest example is the Bonnie and Clyde stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their body was shown off. It was, praised and everything like that. But it's actually a cultural thing in some cultures and everything like that. So once the dead dies and everything,
Mm-hmm.
everybody gets to view it and everything like that. And you get a lot of you don't do it all too well. Because we still have viewings, but not to the scale what they did back in the day, especially if the person was very popular. It's like,
Yeah.
this is your last look before we pop them in the freaking dirt
Mm-hmm.
type deal. But on that, we'll go ahead and close this off. And I think we're not going to do a serial killer next week. I'll have to give you the details. I just can't remember what it was. But talking about the overbearing mother and everything like that. I wanted to
Yeah.
talk about that one overbearing mother that ended up getting shot by her daughter because she basically treated her daughter as a cash cow
Yeah.
for charity groups and everything. I can't remember her name. I have to do a little bit more research, but it's an interesting study. I watched the video. I think it was on Hulu,
Mm-hmm.
and she even was in this party. Her kid was gonna eat a cupcake. She's like, "No, you can't do it," and she put a EpiPen in her. "You're allergic to sugar," and put an EpiPen. I mean, it's one of those things. Yeah, I can understand why she got murked. So that's it for this week. We're cutting it. We're gonna cut these short a lot more because I can set this up, and we got a lot more views off of these.
Off the shorter ones, yeah.
One off the shorter ones. They're going to be shorter and more high definition.
Yeah.
And I can schedule it. It's already going to be scheduled and everything. I'll see if I can do put it into Spotify first, and then I'll put it on. I'll have it scheduled on Saturday at midnight on YouTube.
Yeah, so we're not going to do a serial murder episode next week.
It's going to be a murder.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's going to be Yeah, it's still a psycho and psychopath type.
Yeah.
Still, it's not going to be a serial killer, but it's going to be one of those things to where, oh my God, I can't believe this person was like this
Right.
and this happened.
So we just kind of a programming note, I guess. We may do it via Skype next week.
No, my interview is not until Wednesday, so
Okay.
we'll do it on Tuesday.
Okay.
And yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
Well,
And for those of you who do watch our sports episodes on this channel, we're going to try to cut those down as well. We're going to really kind of try to formalize, not necessarily formalize, but we're really going to kind of try to control the format a little bit as far as
maybe
like, time
about an hour and a
constraints.
half.
Yeah, because we, and it's mostly my fault because
No,
I will get
yeah.
off into these huge tangents, but definitely,
Some
you know,
people like those tangents, though.
well, yeah, but definitely give us smash that subscribe button, hit the bell for the notifications, leave some comments, get engaged with the
Yeah,
conversation.
that's another thing that's been happening a lot is we're getting a lot more engagement. I don't know if it's by your part or just people finding the show and everything like that, but
Right.
we've gotten a lot of more engagements. I mean, even which I'm happy about is Operation Enduring Warrior.
Yeah.
They gave us a couple of engagements and stuff like that, but I haven't been keeping up with it because it hasn't been happening that often. But since it's happening more often, I'll actually engage you. It'll either be David Dickerman or Angry Me Productions or Johnny Skelton that'll do it. But thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend or day. Love you guys. Keep it safe.
Take it easy.